because the filament forms a connectivity between the anther and the thalamus. If many stamens are united in two groups or two bundles, it will be diadelphous. Flowers can be categorized as marginal placentation, the axial placentation, the parietal placentation, the free central placentation, and the basal placentation. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to another session on chapter 5, that is morphology of flowering plants. I am Dr. Divya, biology faculty, Vidyashram Pre-University College, Mysore, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session, we had studied how flowers can be classified based on the arrangement of different parts. So in order to know about this, we had first started with studying the different parts of the flower. And then we went in for studying whether the ovary, that is based on the position of the ovary, whether it is hypogynous, perigynous or epigynous. And also based on the position of the or arrangement of the petals, we studied different types of estivation and many more. So in today's session, we shall concentrate on the reproductive parts of the flower, that is the gynoecium and the androecium. The androecium, which is the male reproductive part, and the gynoecium, which is the female reproductive part. So before moving on to studying the arrangements of the androecium and the gynoecium, we need to know about their parts. So we shall start with that. So first we'll study about the androecium. So as I told you, androecium, it is the male reproductive part of the flower, and it is that part of the flower which produces the pollen grains. And the pollen grains are the ones which have the gametes which will help in the fertilization inside the ovule and therefore giving rise to or helping in the setting of the seeds. So in this image you can clearly see the pollen grains sticking onto the anther. So these are the anthers, or it is in total, it is called as the androecium, which is the male reproductive part. So the anther, it actually, or the stamen, so together it is called as, altogether it is the stamen. So the androecium or the stamen, it is made up of two important parts. One is called as the anther and the other one is the filament. So the filament, it is a long, slender, thin structure that actually forms a connectivity between the thalamus and the anther. So if the anther should be held in a position in the flower, then the filament should connect the anther to the thalamus. So why thalamus? Because I had told you thalamus is the region from which all the other parts of the flower arises. So therefore filament holds the anther in its position, and the anther is usually bilobed. So the anther, it is usually bilobed. So bilobe means it is made up of two lobes. So can you see here, it is two lobes are being present, lobe 1 and this is the second lobe. So it is made up of two lobes. So therefore the anther is bilobed, and the anther and the filament together, they are called as the stamen. Now when I take a cross section or a transverse section of the anther, we can see a structure called as the microsporangia. So this is the microsporangia. So when I say microsporangia, it means a structure that produces the microspores. Why are they called as microspores? Because they are very, very minute in structure. So that is why they are called as microspores, and in other words, they are also called as the pollen grains. So where are the pollen grains produced? The pollen grains are therefore produced inside the anther in special structures called as the microsporangia. So where in the microsporangia exactly the pollen grains are produced, we shall see. So whenever I take a cross section, there are actually 4 locules or 4 cavities will be present So 4 locules or cavities will be present. In these 4 chambers or locules, they are called as the pollen sac. So in the pollen sac, actually the pollen grains will be produced, and these pollen grains, they will mature, they will come out of the anther, and then they will help in the pollination. That is, they will be carried by pollination process, they will be deposited on the stigma, and from the stigma they will enter into the ovary and they will fertilize the ovule. So that is how the setting of the seed actually takes place. So this is about the structure of the anther. So if I say I'm talking about the filament, it means I'm talking about the stamen, it means I'm talking about the anther and the filament, because the anther and the filament together, it constitutes the stamen. So next, moving on to the types of flowers based on the attachment of the stamen. So how are the stamens attached to the flower? Through the filament, right? Because the filament forms a connectivity between the anther and the thalamus, right? So based on how the stamens are attached, based on that, or how it is attached to the corolla. So what is the stamen here? Stamen is nothing but the anther and the filament together, it forms the stamen, and it is called as the andrecium. So stamen is the andrecium or the male reproductive part, and the corolla is nothing but the petal. So how the stamens are attached to the petal, based on that the flowers are of 2 types, epipetalous flower and epiphyllous flower. So what is epipetalous flower? Here in this particular epipetalous flowers, the stamens will be attached to the petals. So if they are attached to the petals, it is called as epipetalous flower. So you can, the best example is brinjal. So I've taken the example of a brinjal flower. So as you can see here, the stamens, so these are the stamens. So these stamens will be attaching, or as you can see, the filament of the stamen will be attached to the corolla. So therefore they will be attached to the petal. So therefore those stamens which are attached to the petal, they are called as epipetalous. So, and also in the case of lily, the stamens will be attached to the perianth. Remember in the previous session I had told you, perianth is nothing but wherein there is no differentiation between the sepal and the petal. The sepal will look exactly like the petal, but because it will be in the color of the petal. Such structures are called as the perianth. So if the stamens are attached to the perianth, that is neither the petal nor the sepal, but it will be attached to something, a structure which looks like the petal as well as the sepal, it is called as the perianth. So can you see here? This is the stamen. So here the stamen will be attached to the perianth. So such flowers are called as epiphyllous flowers. So the stamens, it gets attached to the perianth. So such flowers are called as epiphyllous flowers, and lily flower is one of the best example for epiphyllous flowers. So based on how the stamens are arranged, the flowers can be categorized as epiphyllous flowers and epipetalous flowers. So next, moving on to the filaments, that is how the filaments are attached to the stamens. So we earlier talked about how the stamens are attached to the petals. Now how the filament is attached to the stamen, based on that the flowers are of 4 types, that is polyandrous, monadelphous, diadelphous and polyadelphous. So polyandrous. So polyandrous means more than one stamen will be present. Androus, andrecium, more than one andrecium or more than one stamen will be present, but they are free. They are not fused to each other. So can you see here? There are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stamens are there, but all the 6 stamens, they are free from each other. They are not fused to each other, right? So such flowers are called as polyandrous or free. They are free stamens. And next, moving on to monoadelphous. So mono means single. They are united. So they will be united into one bunch or one bundle. The best example is China rose, which is nothing but hibiscus. So can you see here? There are numerous stamens. So all these are the stamens of, or the anthers of the flower of hibiscus. But can you see this is the filament? So these are the filament. So these filaments, they all meet at one particular plane. They're all connected in one particular plane. So therefore, they form a bundle or they form group. They are united. So such stamens in which the filaments are fused are called as the monadelphous. In such stamens where the filaments, so say for example here, this is the filament and this is the anther. So together they constitute the stamens. Together they are called as the stamen. So such flowers in which the filaments are free, they are not attached to each other, are called as polyandrous flower. So next, moving on to diadelphous flowers. So diadelphous condition, here the stamens are united, but they are united in two groups, that is in two separate groups. Say for example, if all the stamens are united in one group, it is monadelphous. If the stamens are united in two groups, it will be diadelphous. Here one group is there, the second group is there, that is diadelphous. Adelphous, they are fused, but in two groups, that is diadelphous. Monadelphous, they are fused but or united but in one group. So here you can see this stamen is one group and this one will be the second group. Can you see here all the filaments? So here the filaments of the stamens are all united to one particular group. So this is the group 2. Second group, it is a second group. So united in two bunch or one bundle. The best example is pea flower. So in pea flower usually we find diadelphous. So two groups here, one stamen is separate, the other stamens have formed a group here. So therefore they are attached in two groups or two bundle. It is diadelphous. Next is polyadelphous. So here polyadelphous. So poly means many. So many stamens, they will be united in more than two bundles. If many stamens are united in two groups or two bundles, it will be diadelphous. In polyadelphous, many stamens will be united in more than two bundles. That is, say for example, more than two. Bundle 1, bundle 2, bundle 3, bundle 4, either 3 bundles or 4 bundles. If they united, they are called as polyadelphous. So here the best example is citrus flower. So in citrus flower, can you see if it is, the image is clear, there is one group, this is one group, this is the second group, and here one third group is there. Like this, 3 groups are presently seen in this particular picture. So more than 2 groups, if the stamens are united, it is nothing but polyadelphous. So therefore the flowers can be categorized into different groups or species based on the attachment of the filaments of the stamen or the filament of the anther. So they can be polyandrous, they can be monoadelphous, they can be diadelphous, and also they can be polyadelphous. So these are the different types. So next we'll move on to the female reproductive part, that is the gynoecium. So gynoecium is also called as the pistil or the carpel, and the gynoecium is divided into different parts. We shall see each of them. So it is mainly made up of stigma. So this stigma is very important. Why? Because the pollen grains that are matured inside the anther, once it comes out of the anther, they will come and fall on the stigma. Once they fall on the stigma, they will germinate and then they will start producing the pollen tube. So therefore, stigma is the receptive organ, or it is the organ, or it is a part of the female reproductive part of the flower which actually receives the pollen grain, or it forms a bed for the pollen grains to come and fall. So this stigma should be connected to the ovary. How is it connected? It is connected by a structure called as the style. So like how in the stamen, the anther was connected to the thalamus through a filament, just like that, the stigma is connected to the base of the ovary by basal region, that is the ovary, through a structure called as style. So the style is also thin and slender. It is thin and slender. So easy to remember. You can remember about stylus, which is a pen that is used on the computer screens and all that. That is also thin and slender, right? Just like that, style, it is thin and slender. And next we have, at the base of the style, there is a bulged part, that is a bulged, which is swollen, a swollen part, that is called as the ovary. So now, what is inside this ovary? We shall see. So inside this ovary, there is, when I take a cross section of the ovary, what can be seen inside the ovary? The ovary is made up of locules, or it is made up of cavity. These are called as the locules. So it is made up of cavity. Even this one is also the locule. It is made up of cavity. So these locules are connected to the ovary or the margin of the ovary by placenta. So this is the placenta. So remember, in females, the baby is connected to the mother through a placenta. Why is it connected? So that it can take up for respiration process and also for the derivation of the nutrition and the food. Similarly, here also the placenta connects the ovule to the margin of the ovary, that is in the locule. The ovules are connected through a placenta, which helps in the derivation of the nutrition. And these structures are nothing but the ovules. So these are the ovules. So ovules are very important because the main reproductive part lies in the ovule, that is the pollen grain. Actually, it will enter into the ovule and it will deposit the gametes. So that is why, or the pollen grain will produce, once it falls on the stigma, it will produce the pollen tube, and that pollen tube carries the male gametes into this particular ovule, wherein fertilization will take place and then the setting of the seed will occur. And always remember, the ovule will form the seed and the ovary will form the fruit. So that is the structure of the ovule, that is the gynoecium. So inside the gynoecium, especially the main part, that is the bulge part inside the ovary, there is the presence of the ovule. So this is about the female reproductive part, gynoecium. So next we shall study based on the gynoecium, based on how many gynoeciums or how many carpels are present. The flower is divided into two types, that is monocarpellary and dicarpellary, or monocarpellary and dicarpellary. So one carpel and more than one carpel. So one carpel means, as I showed you, only one gynoecium or carpel will be present. But if it is more than one carpel, again they can be of two types, whether it is apocarpus or whether it is syncarpus. So apocarpus means the carpels will be free. Syncarpus means they are syncing, they are fused, the carpels will be fused. So the best example I've taken here is lotus and rose. And in apocarpus, the carpels will be free. So here I've taken the example of a lotus flower. So can you see here? Here there are numerous carpels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, numerous carpels are there. That is, more than 2 carpels are present. Or more than one carpel is present. But the question is it free or fused? The carpels are free. So carpels are free means they are fused, like they are free in nature. The carpels are free. That is, each carpel will have its own ovule and own locule and all that, and own ovary and all that. So that is why. So each carpels will be free. So if the carpels are free or if the gynoeciums are free, then it is apocarpus. One more is syncarpus. So here, if the carpels are fused, it is called as syncarpus. The best example is I've taken here tomato plant. So mustard and tomato are the two examples, but here I've taken the tomato plant. So tomato, can you see here? This is the carpel. So all the carpels, they are fused together. So that is why it is called as syncarpus. So based on the presence of the ovary, based on the presence of the carpel or the gynoecium or the female reproductive part, if only one carpel is there, it will be monocarpellary. And if there is more than one carpel, again it is divided into apocarpus. So a question will arise. So okay, there are more than one carpel. So are the carpels free or are the carpels united? So if they are free, they are called as apocarpus, and if they are united or if they are fused, they are called as syncarpus. So this is about the types of flowers based on the carpel. So next, moving on to based on placentation. So what is placentation? Based on how the ovules are arranged inside the ovary, it is called as placentation. So again, based on placentation, they can be of different types, that is marginal placentation, axial placentation, free central placentation, then parietal placentation and basal placentation. So here placentation, remember, if the word comes placentation in the case of angiosperms, it is something related to the position of the ovule. So inside the ovary, so this is the cross section of the ovary that they have shown. So inside the ovary, the ovules will be present. In what position? Where exactly is the ovules located? So based on that, they can be of different forms. So we shall study first with the marginal placentation. So marginal placentation, the best example I can take here is pea pods. So pea, can you see, this is the ovule. So in the ovule, in one particular margin or in one particular line, the ovules are situated. So that is why they are called as marginal placentation. And next, moving on to axial placentation. Axial, they are situated at the center in one particular axis. So can you see here? Here the ovules are situated in one particular angle or the axis. So therefore these are the ovules. So they are called as axial placentation. Now you can ask me, ma'am, why this is axial placentation and free central placentation, both are looking almost similar? No, there is a vast difference. In free central placentation, there is no locule at all. The ovules are located as it is in the center. There is no locules being present. But can you see here, this particular ovary is divided into 3 locules, 1, 2 and 3, and at the axis of each of the locule, at the axis, the placenta is being situated or the ovules are being situated. So such type of placentation is called as axial placentation. Next, moving on to parietal placentation. So parietal means at the periphery, at the margin, at the outer margin. So here you can say parietal placentation, here it also has only one locule. So in one locule, they are situated at the margin. So the ovules are situated in the margin or in the periphery, in the side. They are situated towards the sides. Here they were situated towards the axis. Here they are situated at the side. So therefore that is at the periphery or at the side. So therefore it is called as parietal placentation. And next, moving on to one more type of placentation, that is free central placentation. So in free central placentation, there is no locule, only one cavity or locule is being present and the ovules are just like that situated at the center and they are held by the placenta at the center. So these are the ovules which are present. So there is no locule being present here, only one locule is there. So therefore, it is free central placentation. The placenta are holding the ovules at the center. It is free central placentation. So in this, the placenta is holding the ovules in the axis of each of the locule, therefore axial placentation. Here the placenta is holding the ovules towards the periphery of the ovary, therefore it is parietal placentation. Next, moving on to basal placentation. Basal placentation are usually seen in the monocotyledons. So here one ovule is located at the base. So if this is the base of the ovary, it will be located at the base of the ovary. So one ovule is located at the base of the ovary. So that is why it is called as basal placentation and it is usually seen in the monocotyledonous plants. So therefore, based on the arrangement of the ovules or based on the position where the placenta holds the ovule in position inside the ovary, the flowers can be categorized as marginal placentation, the axial placentation, the parietal placentation, the free central placentation and the basal placentation. So in today's session, we mainly concentrated on the reproductive parts of the flower, that is the gynoecium and the androecium. So first we studied about the different parts of the androecium made up of the stamen. So the stamen consists of the anther and the filament. Then we studied about based on the position of the filament, they are classified into different forms and also based on the anthers, they are also classified. And also we had studied about gynoecium. So in gynoecium, which is the female reproductive part, we studied about the different parts of the gynoecium and based on the location of the ovules inside the ovary, we studied the different placentations, and also based on how the gynoecium is, whether it is fused or whether it is free, how the flowers are classified. So I hope you understood this session well. In the coming sessions, we shall concentrate on studying the different families, that is family Fabaceae, Liliaceae, their characteristics, all that we shall study. And before moving on to that, we shall take a look into the fruit and the seed, because the fruit and the seed are the post-fertilization structures. After fertilization occurring, then the ovules will develop into the seed and the ovary will develop into the pulpy fleshy part, that is nothing but the fruit. We shall study about the fruit, the seed, and also we shall study about the different symbols that are used in order to classify the flower. That is, if you need to represent petals, what are the symbols used? If you need to represent carpel, what are the symbols used? So, and if there is fusion of the carpels, what are the symbols used? If they are free, what symbol is used? So, all that we'll study in the coming session. So, I hope you understood this session very well. We shall meet again in the coming session. Thank you.